Hello and welcome everybody. What is going on? So obviously this is Bayern Fan TV, and I thought I just had to address this because obviously this is going to be a question that will be brought up in the near future, and I thought before anyone else says it I might as well say it because I think it is pretty obvious who the conclusion will be. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't read the title of this video, it is about who will become the next captain at Bayern. Now obviously with Lahm retiring, you have a void to fill, not just in terms of player but also in terms of captaincy. And I thought about it, and to be fair, there's only really one real challenger, there's only one real contender for captaincy. And I think the reason why it hasn't been announced yet is because it will be controversial no matter what. So let me just list you 3 players. Actually, I've got 6 players written down here. I'm going to start with 3 names that are not likely, that are not very likely. 3 names that are just, I'd say maybe like at 2%, honestly, at 2%. And then I'm going to list you 3 names who I think are very likely, and 1 in particular who I think is going to be captain next season. Now let me start with the 3 players who I don't think are very likely at all. And these are, let me start with the first one, which is Alaba. David Alaba, obviously he's got, I don't know whether you consider him a youth talent from Bayern or whether you just consider him a player that we bought at a young age. Whichever thing you consider, he has spent roughly 8 years at Bayern, and he has been a mainstay in the team for a very long time. So you could say that he is a starter, which in my opinion is a requirement. If you want to be captain, you have to be a starter, which is why there's only really one challenger for me. But he is a starter, guaranteed starter essentially. There's very few matches that he will miss. He is not very injury prone. He is usually very good. I mean, he's had a rough season this season, but usually plays at a very high level, and he does demand the energy, he does demand the drive, he does demand his team to play better, and he also puts pressure on himself, which I think is also very important. Now you can tell that he puts pressure on himself because he likes taking set pieces. Now that he doesn't just do that because he's good at them, but he does that because he thinks, you know what, I can help the team. A good example against Leipzig, I think it was the 87th minute. Lewandowski wants to take the set piece. Alaba tells him, no, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that because I think I can do that. I think I can score that, and he scores it. So he has the character to be a leader. Now the only problem is that he is very young. That, in my opinion, is standing in his way, that he is very, very young. And that's why I don't think there is a big chance, because ultimately if you give him the captaincy now, he doesn't have anything in the future. He's going to have to command players that are older than him, say 34, 35-year-old players, and you're going to have a young sport like that who's 23, 24, 25 years old, and you're going to have him tell everyone what to do. That isn't really the way to go. So that's just, he's out of the captaincy question due to his age, in my opinion. Now the next one I want to talk about is Lewandowski. Lewandowski, he has the one aspect that he is always healthy. He's rarely ever injured, unless it really matters then he is injured, but he is rarely ever injured. And as a player, as a guaranteed starter, especially as a striker, normally, obviously captains are usually strikers or midfielders. Okay, I prefer midfielders in all honesty. If I had to choose a captain, I would prefer a midfielder, but normally it's always a striker or a midfielder. He is the striker, so he kind of fits one of those criterias. Although, like I said, that's just normally not the rule, but just normally. But Lewandowski, he's a striker, rarely ever injured. Usually performs in every match. Even when he isn't really active in the play, he still is able to perform. He still gets the goals usually. So he is a good name for captaincy. Now the only issues are that he's only been at Bayern, say what, 2 years now. So you can't give a captaincy to somebody that is just joined the club 2 years, because of what kind of signal would that send to like the players such as Robin, such as Ribery, who have been there for a long time. What kind of signal does that send? Like, oh, I could just become captain just by moving and just because I'm a regular player. It doesn't really send a good signal, in my opinion. Now The next one is Hummels. Yeah, some of you guys might be thinking, Hummels? Why? Now, the only reason why I put him here is because he is a leader. He has been captain before, not of Bayern, but he has been captain before. So he's got the experience of how to be a captain, how to handle the expectations, and how to obviously talk to the coach and deliver the messages from the squad to the coach. You know, that's all. That's really what is going for him, and the fact that he's German as well. Because obviously you want a leader, you want a captain that can actually speak to the team fluently and understand what they're trying to bring across. So he's got that going for him. He is very new though. He's only really rejoined this year, so that's why he's out of the captaincy in my opinion. Now these are the three names, like I said, that I don't think are very likely. Alaba, Lewandowski, and Hummels. I think if you give them each a percentage, I'd probably give them like a 2 to 3% chance. So not totally out, but just very unrealistic. Then we get to the three players who I think are very likely to become a captain. I'm gonna go in the order that I think is least likely. So we're gonna start with the player out of those three who are very likely, with the player that is probably the least likely, and that is Thomas Müller. Now, he's got a lot of things going for him. That's why he's very likely to be a captain. You know, he's got the fact that he's a youth product. He grew up in Bayern. You know, he's been there his whole career essentially, and he's usually a mainstay. Now, that's the problem. That's the key asterisk, that he's usually a main player. He's usually a mainstay. He's usually in the team, usually, and that's pretty much where the asterisk comes in. Now, if I were to give them a percentage, I'd probably give them like each 30, what did I say before? I'll give each or the other one 2%, so that's 6%, so I'd give each of them 32%. That obviously that maths doesn't work out, but still, just go with it. Just a 33%, I think, ultimately. Ignore the other three. Each of them, actually no, Müller has a 30% chance. Because he right now he's not really a starter, and that's the big problem. He is not a starter, and you can't really put someone that's not a starter as a captain. You know, it really doesn't work well. It doesn't really suit the team that you have a player that isn't starting, that isn't playing regularly, be the captain, because ultimately you want your captain to be you want your captain to be in the team every single week. You want him to be part of the starting 11 every single week. So from that standpoint, that's probably the one big asterisk that Müller has. And I think if he had a much better season this year, if he was a guaranteed starter, whereas he was playing a lot of the matches, but big matches Carlo Ancelotti opted to not play him. So if Müller was actually a starter this year, I think he would have been the captain for next year, definitely, and going forward. But obviously that is not the case. So I don't think he's very likely, yes. He's three of the most likeliest player, but he's not the most likeliest player, if that makes sense. Now the next one is a player that I think has very good chances indeed. So if we were to give, say, Müller 30%, I would give this player, say, like I said, ignore the maths right now, but I would give this player, say, a 40% chance. And that is Jerome Boateng. Now, Jerome Boateng, he is... is he a starter? He is pretty much a starter, isn't he? I mean, you could say that he's definitely a starter, but with the amount of midfield options, with the amount of centre-back options that we do have, you could say that he's not always a guaranteed starter, but I would say that he is pretty much a starter. You know, 9 out of 10 times he will start. Big matches he will start. So I'm gonna put him as a starter. You know, he is basically a starter. When he performs, usually when he's fit and healthy to go, he usually performs at a very high level, and one of the most outstanding players on the team. He has the leadership role. Now, the one problem that's perhaps holding him back, that's not so much the captaincy, but much more himself. Much more his performances, is that he used to have like one mistake per game, and now he has one mistake every 3 games. So he's obviously cut down on his mistakes, but he still has those 1 mistakes every 3 or 4 games. So he just needs to cut that out a little bit more, and that will just put him in performance level as a player just much higher. Now, obviously that doesn't really matter for captaincy, because he performs at such a high level usually. But yeah, Boateng I think is a really good chance. I think 40%. The only thing that's really holding him back, the two things actually. The first thing is that keeps asking for captaincy, and in my opinion, you don't ask for captaincy, you get it given. It's the same with leadership, because obviously captaincy is a leadership. You don't ask to be a leader, you become a leader. You don't lead by wanting to. You lead by example, if that makes sense. So that's just the one aspect that I feel really holds him back, at least for me. I don't know how the club views it, but at least for me. And the second aspect is that a little bit injury, a little bit of injury. Not, I wouldn't say he's injury prone, but he does get injured a few times. You know, not nothing major. No, he's not out for like 3 months or so, but he does get like that little injury for like 1 or 2 weeks or so, and misses like 1 or 2 games here and then 1 or 2 games there. So just from that perspective, I'd say, you know, Boateng, that's a second asterisk in my opinion, but those are like the 2 major asterisks. And then you could potentially say the third one, that we've got so many good options in defense that he's not, maybe he's not a guaranteed starter. That's the only thing you could potentially say. But like I said, I put him like a 40%, whereas Muller was like a 30%. Now the next one is who I think is probably gonna be the captain no matter what. I really do think this person is the most likeliest, and I think most of you guys can already guess who it is going to be. I think I'm gonna put him at like a 55%, you know, more than 50%, and that is Manuel Neuer. Like I said, it's a controversial one, and I'll get to that in a second, but I think he's gonna be captain for one simple reason. He is never injured. He is a guaranteed starter, and he leads by example. He's the best goalkeeper in the world. So how else? You know, that's basically the best example that you can have. And obviously, we have President already with Oliver Kahn. So you just have a lot of these factors that just combine, and ultimately, I think he's going to be captain. I really do. I don't see any way around it. Neuer. I mean, like I said, there is controversy with it, with the whole Quan Neuer. I would love to say that that's probably a thing of the past, but I know a few people that still don't want him, for example, as a captain or vice captain as he is. So I know a few people that are obviously 100% still on that boat for various reasons. But I think he is most likely going to be captain. I just can't see anyone else. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, you know, what about Ribery? What about Robin? You know, 2 players that are in the team that, you know, that have been in the squad for a long time. The thing with Ribery and Robin is that neither of them are really starters. You know, okay, maybe at the end of the summer I could say perhaps Robin is a starter, but the fact that we have Coman, Costa is most likely going to go. I'll be honest, I think he's most likely going to go, but I think we're also going to bring somebody else in to replace essentially the right wing. So we're gonna have competition for them, and those are places that obviously they're a good competition. Obviously, Robin and Ribery fairly injured as well. So them being fairly injured as well, you could say that that's also a thing going against them. But I also think that we're gonna try and phase them out, not essentially give them captaincy to play them even more, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's why I didn't include them too. I could definitely see them become captain at like a 3%, but more so I think they're going to be vice captains than actual captains, and that's just my opinion. Like I said, the most likeliest player I think is Neuer, and I think that's actually the reason why they haven't announced who the next captain is going to be, because it is kind of obvious, but they don't want to say it. That's just my opinion. I think that's what's happening, which is kind of hilarious actually, but I think it's hilarious in all honesty. But yeah, that's just my take. I just wanted to make a video on this because I'm pretty sure that sooner or later we're gonna find out anyway. So I just wanted to give my 2 takes on who is a potential candidate and why they're all ruled out for me. Why Neuer is probably the most likeliest, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. But I will see you guys in the next one. I don't know when I'm gonna upload this because it's 5 o'clock in the morning right now, so I'm not gonna upload it right now. I'll probably upload it like exactly at 12 or something, because you can do scheduled uploads. But yeah, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace out and have a nice day. Bye.